Classic, George Cochran and Randy Blaukat found himself basically in the same part of the water. And really, by having to share it with each other, they might have cost themselves, you know, a real shot at overtaking Brower and winning the Classic.
George is a very nice, gentle man off the water. George, when he gets on that water, changes. He goes into, this is my tournament, this is my lake, and I am gonna win. Hey, he's won 2 Bassmasters Classics. There's only a handful of guys that can say that.
The first day of the tournament, George was in the first flight and I was in the second flight. And the cover that we were fishing was real isolated targets. There'd be a laydown log on the river, and then another quarter mile left there'd be another laydown. George was like, you know, in front of me just picking the fish off, and he had that 17-pound stringer, and I was like, you know, fishing for crumbs behind him.
First day of the Classic, I had this big string of fish, and I thought I had all these spots to myself. Well, the second day,
we flip-flopped, and I got out and I caught a 15, almost 16-pound stringer. We just flip-flopped the run, and we didn't really know, you know, who was fishing over what until then.
I remember there was a little hostility when they both figured it out. I think more so on George's part.
at first I got mad. It really made me mad to see somebody fishing the same water after me leading it the first day.
I mean, neither one of us were thrilled. I mean, I wasn't thrilled that he was fishing up there, and he wasn't thrilled I was fishing up there, but that was just the way it was, and there's nothing either one of us could have done about it.
You'd be surprised when you take a 35,000 acre impoundment that the same guys find the same fish. They do in every tournament. The issue is whose fish are they? And if there's not enough area to split, then that's where the conflict starts.
The worst thing you could do is have an argument on the water with another contender, and then you're spiteful to one another and trying to cut each other off, and that's no way to operate. You don't do as well. If you work together, then everybody's gonna just be 100% better off.
But then he came and confronted me after that day and told me that he'd been fishing at the same places I was fishing at different times.
And I just wanted to let him know that, you know, I'd been fishing up there because I didn't want him to see me up there the second day and just think I came in on his water because, you know, he was the tournament leader. So that was the main concern in my mind.
Maybe because I won 2 classics, I didn't get real upset. You know, we're still friends today, and that's just the way it happened. We shared the water, and if he'd had it all to himself or I'd had it all to myself, I really believe that I could have won my 3rd classic because of that.
I guess that's something we'll never know, whether they, you know, if one would have had it to himself, would he have won it? Possibly.
But that's the beauty of the Classic, is it's not about ifs and buts, it's about the guy who does it.
Fortunately for Denny, you know, that's the way that, you know, it unfolded for us up that river, but that was just, you know, that's part of fishing, and there's nothing you can really do about that. And we both had a good finish, you know, we both had the top 5 finish in the Classic, and, you know, I think anybody would be happy with that.
Hey guys, welcome back to Intuitive Angling, and appreciate you guys coming by the channel today and checking out the video. And yesterday, you may or may not have seen it, it depends if you follow my Facebook page or not, but I put up a little clip and did a little story about something that happened between George Cochran and myself at the 1998 Bassmaster Classic, where Denny Breyer won the tournament, George finished 2nd, and I finished 3rd, and it got a ton of traction. And what I want to do today, I want to give you guys the full story of exactly how this came down, exactly how it happened, exactly how the situation that happened between George and I probably was. I'm not saying 100% sure, but there's an argument to be made that it probably helped Denny Breyer win the 1998 Bassmaster Classic. So we're going to get into that in today's episode here. Also, guys, I have got something to admit, man. I just got out of bed and I slept in this morning until almost 10 o'clock, and it was glorious. It's like I have been, as a fisherman, when you fish and you know, got kids to take care of, I'm up every morning early. You know, depending if I'm fishing or not, I'm up between 4 o'clock and 5:30 in the morning. Had a chance to sleep in this morning, and it was great. I highly recommend it. And it would be so nice if we could just get up when we wanted to get up. But I just really, really enjoyed that. I want to let you guys know it. I'm also, guys, before we get started, one quick thing to remind you of. We're into the month of June almost now. June means one thing in bass fishing: swim jig fishing. Swim jig fishing is awesome in the month of June. Guys, try out the new, or not new, but it's been around for a little bit, the Megabass Uoze swim jig here. This thing is the best swim jig you'll ever buy. It's got the original Megabass fish head design, makes it run straight as a string. It's got a super sharp nano-coated hook with a great keeper on it. Perfect weed guard, not too thick, not too light. And it's also got a spinner on it here for an added attraction. So I'll put the Megabass Uoze Swimmer link in my Tackle Warehouse link in the description of this video if you guys would like to pick up a few. They got a bunch of different good colors and sizes, so link in the description there. I really appreciate that. Okay guys, let's get into this a little bit about how all this thing went down here. 1998 Bassmaster Classic. It was on High Rock Lake in North Carolina. And this was like, I was having a really good year, 1998. I won the Bassmaster Angler of the Year Invitational title for the Central Division. You know, Bassmaster had a couple different divisions, so I got first place in the Angler of the Year division and the Angler of the Year standings for the Bassmaster Opens, and I finished, you know, real high in the Angler of the Year standings for the for the Bassmaster Top 100 circuit too. So I was sort of on a roll a little bit, and I'd won a couple, you know, local tournaments around here. Really had a lot of confidence. Excuse me. So going into the Bassmaster Classic, man, I was completely focused on winning that tournament. And High Rock Lake, I'd never been to it before. We had a practice period that was like, I believe it was 30 days before the tournament started or something like that, 3 weeks or something. And I'd never been there before. I did a little bit of research in it, and that time of year, which was an August tournament, everything was one, you know, out off the bank, deep cranking and Carolina rigging. It's like that was the deal. High Rock Lake was a summertime deep cranking lake. That was just what it was known for. So my plan in that tournament, and you got to realize back then I fished a lot of deep water. I mean, I was up with all the latest tech. I had all the latest electronics. It didn't bother me whatsoever to get out off the bank and fish. So it's not like that I, you know, wanted to concentrate on shallow water just because that's the way I was. I did everything. I was at that point in my career, I was like almost too versatile. I could do everything. But my strategy in that tournament, it's like, okay, everything is one out deep in this time of year. I'm going to go the opposite direction, and I'm going to commit this tournament to fishing shallow. So what I did in that tournament during the pre-practice period, during that period, is I had a jet drive Ranger at the time. I had two boats. I had my regular tournament boat, and then I had another 17-foot Ranger with a 60 horse on it, jet drive. So in practice down there, I went down and I practiced for 4 or 5 days, pre-practice for that Bassmaster Classic. I took my jet drive boat with me, and I was committed to fishing way up the river. So I ran up the river, and the first thing I noticed, there wasn't much cover up there. There was like, the water was low, and there was just a lot of mud and gravel banks. And there was some wood here and there, you know, there was some, but not enough from what I thought. So I fished the available wood cover up there, and I started catching some fish, you know, throwing a crankbait and flipping and that type of stuff. And I said, there's some fish up here, and it doesn't have notoriety. I can win this tournament up here, but I need more cover. So after that first day of practice, guys, I spent the next 3 days. I went to the store that night there in North Carolina. I got me 2 long ropes, and I spent the next 3 days going up that river and getting on these nothing-looking banks and finding logs up on the bank, like these logs that were 30 foot long, and I'd tie that rope to that log, and I'd drag those logs off the bank with my jet drive, and I put them in the water, you know, just deep enough to where you could see them barely. There may be 3 or 4 inches sticking up out of the water. So I did this. I put a ton of logs in there. I probably put, I'm gonna guess, 40 or 50 of these logs. I spent 3 days working my butt off in the super hot July sun, no wind. It was just like nothing but work. I was covered with mud, everything like that. And by the end of the 3 days, I had a bunch of these logs that were dragged off on these nothing-looking banks. And this one bank, what I had, it was a long stretch. It was probably about a mile-long stretch of nothing-looking gravelly mud bank. There was nothing on it. And I put about 30 of those, 25 or 30 of those logs on this nothing-looking bank. And like I said, unless you went right over there, you could never even know they were there. They were just barely in the water like that, and they were big logs. So anyway, I was jacked, to fish it in the tournament. And so we went back there for the official practice in the tournament. We had, I believe we had 2 days of practice, 1 or 2 days of practice, I can't remember. But anyway, I went up there to start fishing my logs that I put in, and the water had dropped a little bit, so you could see them a little bit more. The water had dropped, I don't know, maybe 6 inches or a foot. So now these logs, if you were up there and you were looking, they were a little bit more visible. So I went to the first log, and I didn't want to hook anything. So I pitched my bait in there. I had my hooks cut off. Good one, I could feel it start swimming out with it. Went to the next log, another good one, feeling out to it. Went to the next one, I picked up one of my crankbaits, caught about a 4-pounder, and then hopped around more with no hooks on there, and these fish were on these logs. I was freaking pumped. I couldn't wait to get out. So the next day of the tournament, just the first day of the tournament, it happens out, George Cochran was boat number 1. And I hadn't seen anyone up there. I was like the only boat I had ever seen up there. So I'm like saying, I'm going to win this classic up here at Shallow this year. So the first day of the tournament, George Cochran was boat number 1, and I think I was the last boat out. I think I was boat number 40. So you take out according to your boat number. So George takes out first, and I was boat number 40. So by the time they got to me, I'm going to guess, because at the classic they give a big hoo-ha, a bunch of people on the docks, and they give you an introduction. So it takes a long time to get 40 guys out. So probably, I don't know, 15 minutes later, 20 minutes later, something like that, I finally take out. So my plan was I was going to run all those logs as I put them in. So I was going to start on the closest log and work my way up the river. So I ran up the river there, and it's like I started fishing, and it's like I fished 3 or 4 logs and not a single bite. And the thing about it in this tournament, you had to fish super, super slow. So you can't just like go up to a log and flip up there and go to the next one. You had to spend a lot of time on each log. So I went to 4 or 5 logs, and I never got a bite. And I'm like, what the heck's the deal? It's like, I can't believe it. And I fished 4 or 5 more logs and never got a bite. And I'm just like, I don't understand that. I cannot believe what's going on. So anyway, I go up a little bit more, and I turn the corner, and there's George Cochran fishing one of my logs that I put in. So, and he winds up, he has 17 pounds the first day. He's in first place after the first day. So I'm assuming that he fished all my logs before I got there. He was boat number 1, and he just freaking picked all those fish off up there. That's the only thing I can figure what happened, because he was fishing one of the logs that I actually had dragged out with a rope in that tournament. So I'm like, and I'm thinking that morning, it's like, God dang, I bet he freaking picked off every one of those fish on those logs that I put in there. So I fished around that day, and I think George had 17 pounds, and I had like 8 or 9 pounds. I didn't even have a limit. I think I had 3 or 4 fish, and I was just freaking. I couldn't believe it. It's like I was expecting to be leading the tournament that first day. So they had the press conference there the first day of the tournament, and George is up there at the press conference talking. And as soon as he got done with that press conference and walked off the stage, I went right over to him, and I go, George, I just got to tell you something. I go, you're leading the tournament. He goes, I know you're leading the tournament. I go, I want you to know I was up that river all day long today. I started up there. I fished up there all day long. I caught the fish that I weighed in up there, and I'm going to be up there tomorrow. I'm fishing up there this tournament. I want you to know that, because I don't want you to see me up there thinking that I just am pulling in on your water, because that's where I'm fishing at. So I could tell he wasn't very happy about it, but I didn't care. I mean, because I had all right to it. I was up there all day long. and he was fishing the logs I drug out in pre-practice up there. So the next day, and I lost one good one that day. I had 4 fish, but I lost one, probably, I don't know, got about a 5-pounder. It was a big one. I pitched a grub up against a log, and that fish hit it, and I fought it almost all the way to the boat, and it came out. So I should have been in the top 5 after that first day with that 5-pounder. It give me almost 14 pounds. So the second day of the tournament, I'm boat number 1. So I get to go up there, and I get to run my logs and everything, and George is the last boat in the tournament. And as it winds up, that second day of the tournament, I catch the biggest string of the day. I catch almost 16 pounds, and I move all the way up, I think, to the top 5 or something in the tournament. And George, I believe, George was either in first or second behind Denny. I think George was in second behind Denny, and I was in the top 10. And, you know, George had caught, we basically flip-flopped it. I think George had caught, you know, maybe 7 pounds or something that second day. You know, I was up there running the logs first. And that second day, I also lost another giant one. I lost one probably close to 6 pounds, and I had one small, just 14-incher. So at this point, you know, I would have had a big lead in the tournament if I had just got those 2 fish in. So the last day of the tournament, at this point, George and I both know that we're both up there. And flies flip-flop again. We get up there that last day of the tournament, and we're just, at this point, it's pretty much understood. We know what's going on. It's like it just happened to be one of those things that was just unfortunate. There's nothing anybody could do with it. That's just the way it unfolded. So George and I both ran our own water all day long. So I was catching them that last day, but I wasn't. I had my limit fairly quick, and I remember in that tournament, the camera boat came up to me we had about 2 hours left in the tournament, 2 or 3 hours left, and they know what everybody's caught. They got radios on. We had about 2 hours left in the tournament, and one of the camera guys came over to me, and he said, "Randy," he goes, "you're leading the tournament right now." He said, "George has only got 1 or 2 fish, and Denny only had like 3 or something like that." And I had a limit at the time. So you got to imagine the feeling of like having 2 hours left and then somebody telling you that you're going to, you know, you're leading the Bassmaster Classic. So I am bearing down as hard as I possibly can to catch them. I wound up that last day, I lost one about 3.5 pounds, probably would have gave me another, I don't know, another pound and a half or so on the bag I had. And then we get into the weigh-in there, and they held me and Denny and George up to the last 3 guys to weigh in. So out of those 3, I was, you know, everybody had weighed in except for me and George and Denny. And we talked out in the parking lot. We didn't talk about what we had and everything like that. But the only thing that I knew was that 2 hours before that, I was leading the tournament. So I'm sitting in the parking lot waiting to go in, thinking that I'm going to win this tournament. So I'm the first one to go in out of the 3. And when I get in there, I take the lead over everybody else. So I'm sitting there, I'm leading the Bassmaster Classic. There's 2 people left to weigh in. Somebody told me that 2 hours before that I was going to win it. I was leading it. And George weighs in, and he caught I think he caught 1 or 2 more fish at the end of the day. So he passes me and moves into first place by not much, by maybe 4 or 5 ounces. And I dropped to second, which I was freaking devastated about it. And then Denny comes in, and of course, I think he caught that 7-pounder that last day of the tournament, and he winds up winning the tournament. And I finished 3rd in it. So looking back there, guys, that was like, you know, I had the fish on to win that tournament. I've lost 3 big fish. You know, Denny won the tournament fair and square. But it was just one of those things that happened that, you know, it was just unfortunate. I mean, it was just like, you know, wrong place at the wrong time. So anyway, guys, I just wanted to run that past you, sort of clarify what happened there. So anyway, we'll talk later.